Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time. It is Tuesday, and that means we are so lucky to have the lumberjack. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing wicked awesome. I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am for this video.
That is awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear it. So just kind of set the stage for everyone because I am going to pull up a PowerPoint slide here in a minute. But over the weekend, both Matt and Dion reached out to me about a video that Reventure Consulting put out. If you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know that I have refused to look at that pages because it just infuriates me. Because again, there's causation and correlation, and then there is predictability. Everything's a crash. And I refuse to be, I don't know, drawn into nonsense. However, not only did Matt and Dion, as you guys will see in a minute, I actually took screenshots. Over 100 people reached out to me on my channel. Yeah, 100 people. Basically saying, he's right, you're wrong, you don't understand. Which, you know,
okay.
If you want to punch me in the nose a couple of times, I'm gonna wake me up. So I am going to try to go through this in the nicest way possible. But we are going to have an honest review of his video. So you ready for that?
Oh my word, am I ready for this? Listen, one of the things that I love about what we do, right? You have your channel, I have my channel, we have our community together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of the things that I love that we do is we don't talk about things that we don't know. And even better, I think we do a really good job of taking it the next level, which is you, me, Dion, all of us could have and do these videos, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think the issue is that which of it fits better and who's in what's better wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And this is by far better and stronger for your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if we ever have a big meetup, we ever get together in a parking lot and he ends up showing up because he actually wants to learn about real estate, first I'll tell him, and then he starts mocking me. Then you guys get to see what I'm really good at. So I think it's awesome that you're doing this because I think we need to take it point by point.
Yeah.
And I believe that we are, and we have been over the last year and a half, we've been right on so much, and we really are thought leaders on so many things. I think it's really important that when somebody is intentionally doing things for clicks and misleading people and doesn't really know what they're talking about, I think it's important that it be called out and at least discussed. So the counter argument is at least stated. So I'm thrilled for this video. Super excited.
Yeah. So just two more things and I'll pull it right up. So first and foremost, what got me was the 100 people reaching out.
Yeah.
That was like, all right, you know, somebody's going to call me out in the quad and everybody's there. I'm going to show up. We're going to find out if they show up. And then second, the biggest thing about my channel that I've always stayed true to is I'm putting millions of dollars at risk all the time. I'm telling everybody what I'm doing.
Yep.
I told people about selling apartments in 19 before the pandemic because I thought cap rates are low. I wrote in my book about when I sold out of all my houses, right? I told you about dry powder raising. I mean, I'm an open book. I'm not sitting in my mom's basement trying to generate, you know, this. I don't know if it's him, but lots of people online, and it certainly could be him, they're creating videos. They've tapped into a nerve and they know that every time you click on it, they make a penny.
Yep.
Folks, you're selling your soul for a penny. Mm-hmm. I mean, those 10 minutes you're never going to get back, but I digress. I watched the video. I gave him 3 or 4 cents because, I had to watch it because I just wanted to pull out what he said.
Like cumulatively between the 3 of us, I think we gave him a dime.
There you go.
I mean, I had to watch this stuff, and a lot of times I had to go back and re-listen to it, and I was just like, this is so dangerous. And the other real quick before you jump in, we've had so many other people reach out to us over the last year to year and a half to say, I watched this guy's channel, I didn't buy.
Yeah, he has hurt so many people.
So many people. And again, right now, we're telling people, hey, guess what? You guys bought year and a half ago, you starting to feel nervous. By all means, if you can't sleep well at night with what you're holding for assets, sell. And what would they do, Mike? They would be 25% richer watching us the last year and a half instead of watching that bonehead.
Yeah. So this is basically the theme of his thing is home buyers are running out of money. That was his title. Whatever. Worst market in 100 years. Okay. So again, not only you and Dion, but these are just some of the people that said, basically, hey, idiot, you're missing stuff, which I'm not, but whatever. So
Yeah.
again, lots of people, again, these were just as many as I could fit on one slide. There were plenty of others. Some of them had swear words in it. If you want to really get up my goat, put those in because I'll just delete you. Right. No hate, no, none of that. But yeah, so again, you were not the only one. So it's for these folks that I did this video.
Yeah.
So he calls this the biggest bubble of all time, which is wow.
Uh-huh.
Having been someone who invested through the last one, having been someone who got out at the top, right? Read my book. I tell you all about it.
Yeah.
I
He
think
has no clue.
I think it's really a ballsy claim. I think he's absolutely wrong, but damn, that's a ballsy claim.
It doesn't take balls to have an opinion that's uninformed.
That's right. It doesn't take a genius to be wrong.
I mean, he's not nearly as smart as he thinks he is. Anytime I look at a creator online, I look at what their history is because that's likely jaded or creates the glasses in which they look at the world. When I look at him, he was in college when I was buying deals in foreclosure.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is his experience matters. And he wasn't out of college until 2012. And his first job, which was his only job aside from Reventure Consulting, was being a underwriter for a small commercial firm. That does not qualify you to have these opinions. So please, I digress, but I think it's important for people to recognize this is not being gone after haphazardly. Yeah. This is understanding a person's view, understanding where they created those views, and the lack of experience that they have in actual, not only practical application, but also he didn't experience that market. I can't tell you what gas lines were like in 1973 because I wasn't alive yet.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you that, but that's the thing is we have to have people giving input to this situation that actually have experience. So please, sorry, I'm ready.
Yeah. So again, having done this for 20 some odd years, put millions of dollars to risk, successfully called the last one. And, you know, I don't pout my chest out enough around that. I did. He is saying it's the biggest bubble of all time, which catches my attention because my market went down 75%. And if this bubble's bigger, that means my market will go down more than 75%. These are just logical if-then statements. That is what he is saying. That is, first off, I would love it to happen, but there is no chance on God's green earth that Fresno, California goes down 75%. There's none. So if it can't happen, then this can't be the biggest bubble of all time. It's just if-then. Okay. On the left hand of your screen are things he said in the video. On the right side are things that I believe. So point, counterpoint. First, he says flat or down incomes lead to a housing crash. He pointed at something in the 40s, something in the 70s. And then, as in point 2, he pointed out flat income growth in 2005 as the sole reason and responsible for the last crash.
Couldn't be more wrong.
Which again, if he graduated in 12, which I don't know, I've never bothered to look.
Yep.
That means he was 11 years old in 2005.
No, so he graduated college in 12. Oh, so 7 years. So he was 15.
Okay, so he was
still not paying attention to financial markets.
Yeah,
but or buying homes. He was probably studying to get his license.
But he could have looked at this. I mean, this claim. I can't believe. I actually looked at the comments because again, I spent time on this.
Yes.
I can't believe nobody called him on that line alone. 2005, lack of income growth led to the crash.
If you asked anybody that lived through the crash, would that be in their top 5?
That might not be in their top 500.
Right. It's not even, it's completely off the mark.
Yeah.
You know, it's apples and bowling balls comparison.
Yeah, it's wacky. And then the last one he says is wage growth is not inflation. He did because he was trapped in his argument. Right. In the 70s, we've talked about inflation. I've given you 50 years. I've done all the math for you. I give away my spreadsheet, which he doesn't do. So anybody, and I tell you all the sources, which I do here again. He's just saying words, hoping you're mesmerized and he can make a penny. I just want you to, so now go to the other side. Affordability is the one metric that you can watch in your region. These are all real estate is local. You have to know your affordability. It is the sole reason that I was able to get out at the top in 2005. I give you all my addresses. I give you all these things. You can see what I've done. And the other thing that made the crash was something called strategic defaults, because we had 2 and 28s, we had teaser loans reset, we had forced sellers. You cannot have a crash unless there is wave after wave after wave after wave after wave after wave of forced sellers. That is how a crash happens. Now, in fairness, I have done research back to other crashes, like the S&L savings and loan crash, forced waves region, like the Houston oil catastrophe in the 70s. You can have localized forced selling. The Great Recession was a national housing crisis.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it was bad lending standards.
So that's the next
across the board. Yeah, sorry.
It was nothing to do with income. Nothing.
Right.
It wasn't in the
Nothing.
top 500
At all.
Bad loans, adjustable rate mortgages, fraud, and forced sellers who had no equity. Here, and this is why you won't have a crash today. Not only equity, but these resets that people had to suffer took them above rent payments. So when mom and dad are around the kitchen table, they're staring at a mortgage payment that says $2,000, and they know they can rent a place down the street for $1,000. They're going to rent, but they're going to also live for free for a year because it takes them a year to be foreclosed.
Right.
Today, because of the low mortgage and fixed rate debt and equity, they're looking at $1,000 mortgage payment and $1,800 rent down the street. Mom and dad are going to do everything possible to stay put. It is
1,000%
financial suicide to not do this. So again, wrong. And then because I have an economics degree and this thing just infuriated me, wages are the number one contributor to inflation. It is why the Federal Reserve's greatest fear is a wage inflation spiral. Folks, he talks about inflation in wages like they're not connected. If you don't not pick up on that, it is simplistic. Wages lead to inflation. The greatest fear of the Federal Reserve is wage spiral inflation.
Sure.
So I can't believe nobody, he has such a fan base that just wants to hear the word crash that they don't check them on anything. All of these things are wrong. So by the way, this is slide 2 of like 9 slides. So
I'm ready. I'm still buckled in. I'm buckled in.
So this is his view. These are his numbers. These were cut and paste by 20 of his viewers in my comments. So I just put him here on the left. Those are his numbers, not mine. But on the right, I want you to realize something. These are subtle things because I play with numbers all the time. I have an econ and stats and all of those things. The number one thing you all are missing in this housing growth numbers is he relied on the Case-Shiller. Case-Shiller national numbers are 20 cities. I have taken the time to list the 20 cities: Miami, LA, DC, San Diego. You can see the list. Those cities are missing at least 60% of the US population. And I would dare say that those cities do not make up this environment. It has one city from Florida. It doesn't have any cities from Nashville. It has Detroit, Michigan, which I promise you was a vibrant city with nearly 2 million people in the 1960s. And it's not today. There is and the really disappointing part is the national numbers are out there.
Yeah.
They just don't match his view.
He's lazy.
No, he's not. He's actually not lazy. He is looking for the data that makes his point. That's what that's a jump. So that is a jump for me to a certain degree, because I think that the laziness comes from here's the easy to grab data, meaning that it's already prepared in a report for me, kind of done and ready to go. I think what you're saying is, I think he's even looking at everything and then cherry picking. Maybe. And then
possible.
Yeah. The other thing is he talks about decades and then look at his numbers. So he talks about the 70s, but he's including year 80 and 81. That's a very subtle thing, because in my 50-year spreadsheet, folks, you will know that 80, 81 were very different than the 70s. And then, oh, by the way, he counts 81 again, right? Because it's not only 71 to 81, then it's 81 to 91. And he's double counting years. This is like frustrating, right? And it's like, really?
It's wrong.
It's
It gives, because it doesn't give, I mean, again, it's like
the data is now dirty.
yeah, exactly. It's doubled over. It's dirty because now you're potentially double counting a good year or double counting a bad year.
Exactly. It's just,
I get it.
So
Just
bad.
100%.
All right. So now I've gone out and cleaned it up. So I've given you actually the 70s and actually the 80s. And oh, by the way, I didn't do 20 cities. I did every transaction. I've given you my sources. They're listed there. They're underlined. So there's a hyperlink to where they come from. And again, I did his math. I only looked at income and I only looked at housing, right? So his point is when there's a negative number, you have a problem. That's his point. Well, guess what? We've had a negative number 3 times now, not once. His argument blows up once you look at the entire country and you clean up his data numbers. This is just all wrong, right?
Yeah.
We actually have 3 negative numbers. Now, if you watch my channel, you know the exact reason why. Because it's not about income and it's not about housing growth. At least it's not about those 2 things. There is this third variable that has given us and every buyer of homes power. Because again, right now, if you look at the national story, housing should have crashed 3 out of the last 5 decades. That's what his data, that's his logic with his metrics, except cleaned up. I'm no longer double counting years and I'm using the entire country instead of 20 big cities. His story breaks.
Not only that, but the big city thing, Mike, is completely changed now.
Exactly. The cities in the 60s aren't the same as the 2020. It's crazy.
Everybody in the 60s was migrating to cities, trying to get into cities. And then you had urban sprawl start to occur because you had no more room left in the cities. Yeah. But in 2019, 2020, maybe he should look up what happened that drove a bunch of people out of cities.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that's what happened. So it's so important to consider not a city, but to create a historical, countrywide, nationwide view.
And all the data is there.
The big cities and the small ones.
It's all there. It's all there.
Everything.
It's
everything.
All there. But again, his point is if housing growth is above income growth, you're supposed to have a crash. Remember, he said the biggest crash forever is coming because he wanted this negative 5.8. That's what he wanted in his story, because the last 4 decades were good. And I want to show a big number and I want everybody to know the biggest crash of all time is coming. He did that on purpose.
Of course.
If you clean up the data, you remove the bias of 20 cities, his argument should have 3 decades of crash. And we all should know the fact. How can that be? Well, he's got incomplete information, folks. Here's the deal. Here's the average interest rates for the decades. Notice anything in the last 40 years? I'm just saying, I mean, anything really? Is there anything there?
I mean, maybe it's me. I am a 9th grade dropout, so I'm trying to understand numbers with percentages next to them.
Yeah.
But it would appear as though it's somewhat closely linked to interest rate for the decade.
Yeah, well, it's the third variable, right? Interest rates have gone down 75% since the 80s. They were 12, then they went to 8. Let me just tell you, a mortgage payment with an 8 is a lot different than a 12. And a mortgage payment with a 6 is a lot different than 8. And a mortgage payment with a 4 is a lot different than 6. This is how come you don't have a housing crash when incomes don't keep up with housing. This is why housing could go up and incomes don't keep pace, because the cost of capital, the cost of money goes down. This guy is horrible at this. So again,
he is very, very, very bad when it comes to actually understanding what the data is telling you. Yeah. He's honestly probably one of the worst on YouTube, if not the worst.
Well, he has a theme. He has tapped it. He is probably making, I don't know, what do you want to say? 10 grand a month, scaring people.
Way more than that, Mike. Way more than that.
Oh, that is too bad.
In the end, he's probably going to make $500,000 this year off his channel.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
Y'all, that's
and you know what? And people are paying him in fear. They don't get it. They won't do any of the work. They won't fact check. It's just like,
no, they want it because they don't want to do nothing. They don't want to do the work. They want to be told now's not the time.
Exactly right.
Congratulations. So again, it's all about affordability. Affordability is the only metric that matters. If you have to have one, it's affordability, because it is the combination of price, income, and cost of capital. Very few people buy housing with cash, right? It just doesn't work.
No.
So again, a lot more people can afford a house with a 4 than a 6. So that's that.
Of course.
So a couple other quotes that I took from his, these are his quotes, and in parentheses, a couple of them. Home prices and flat incomes lead to massive bubble. Again, hopefully I've shown you now. What about rates? Price gone way up compared to income. However, rates are way down. Home prices of America, and I would like to say, don't equal Case-Shiller index.
No,
Different than the 40s and the 70s, but like the 2000s. What the hell are you talking about?
He has no clue what he's talking about. The debt structure is completely different. 2 and 20s were 50% of the loan product, and now they are 4% of the loan product. And 2% of that loan product just happened in 2021. So you're wrong.
Yep. Since 2013, housing has been above income. In his world, that's a bubble. But again, I would like to tell you that rates are down substantially.
Again, it's apples and bowling balls.
He says it all comes down to income. I would like to remind you, it's all about payment. It's not income. Here's one that he did say: 75% of single family homes have loans. I did not check the data, but I'm willing to say that's a good, I agree with you. That's a good number. Hey, he said something I agree with. Biggest bubble of all time. No, no, just no. Affordability is where market breaks. I agree. He actually said that near the end. He actually said that when he was summarizing. I agree with that statement, but unfortunately he didn't talk about affordability at all in his video.
And the reason why and so just to explain to folks, the reason why it is affordability is because affordability just doesn't take into account price. It takes into account price, rate, income. Exactly. It takes all of the things that we care about that then create payment. And then it says, how much do you make versus what's the payment, not just what's the price.
Yeah. Then he goes on to say something that just grades on my just everything that I know. Inflation doesn't cause homes to go up. It is income. What? Income is inflation, idiot. What are you talking about?
You said so you have this like inflation does or doesn't cause homes to go up.
Inflation doesn't cause homes to go up. Sorry, I forgot.
Okay, I was just making sure. Because I was like, oh no, he got it right then, but he got it wrong because it doesn't. Inflation doesn't. Okay, got it.
It is in
damn autocorrect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when you forgot. Yeah, anyways. Then he talks about corporate buyers, not big enough players to impact market. I agree. They're only 3 to 6%. Maybe they're big enough in some markets. But
so real quick, so they aren't necessarily. So generally speaking, that's correct. They're not big enough to buy up the nation. What is incorrect is that they absolutely have been massively impacting 4 or 5 markets.
Agreed. Yeah,
massively.
Phoenix.
Yeah. Phoenix, Austin, Tampa,
Nashville,
Miami, Nashville. Yeah. There are massive buyers in those markets that are Wall Street based that are buying for cash, period. End of story. Now, that has nothing to do with my market and has nothing to do with your market and has nothing to do with the 1,874 other markets.
Exactly. Yeah. So my final slide, I think these are my thoughts. I just want to be clear. The last crash was not caused by lack of income.
No.
In 2005. It just wasn't. It's simply wrong.
And the other reason that's wrong is because the crash didn't actually really start to even get any traction until in 08.
Yeah, it rolls over in 08, but builds to 9, 10, 11.
Right.
Yeah. Income and price are only 2 of the 3 important metrics. You are missing rate.
Yes.
Okay. ARMs, teaser loan resets, no equity, basically set up what is called a strategic default.
Yes.
The strategic fault happens when it is cheaper to rent than own. Trust me. They would have fought tooth and nail to stay in their home if the mortgage payment was less than rent.
Absolutely.
It just wasn't. And it wasn't by a long shot.
This is where the 10 years of lack of building, right? With so many construction companies and so many builders getting destroyed. and then not being able to get debt, and now not being able to get material. This is where it's created this storm that we have now with massive rent increases that are higher than mortgages, where, to your point, that's another thing that makes what we're going through now markedly different.
Yeah. Forced sellers cause cascading price declines. And while we will always have some forced sellers in any market, even the best of the best, death, divorce, job transfer, we will not have the cascading. We will not have the 5 million homes come on via foreclosures and short sales. Rates are going up big time, and it will make homes less affordable and slow transactions. I believe that, and I've called it, and I've been very loud about that. I think transactions are going down and going down substantially. 30-year low rates are actually going to prove an asset. They will freeze people in their homes for years, keeping supply low and below trend. Wage growth is absolutely inflationary. In fact, wage growth is the largest single variable of inflation. The Fed's biggest fear is a wage inflation spiral. And I believe we are actually set up to have wage inflation spiral. Think about deglobalization, think about the participation rate, think about the service sector kicking in. Go watch my playlist called Whiteboard. I whiteboard for you the next 2 years. I think unemployment goes down to the low 3s, which I didn't think was possible when I was getting my degree, but that's where I think we go. The Fed has caused this housing issue. The Fed has caused this issue that will last up to a decade as supply and demand are just out of whack. I think transactions will fall to at least 25 and probably down 50% peak to trough. Lastly, for all the investors and home buyers, great deals will get easier to find. Not easy, but easier. As only truly motivated sellers will sell in the next couple of years. So that's what I did.
So I agree with all of that. And I think that one of the other videos that we're going to do today, I will actually explain to folks that 25 to 50% transaction and how that directly impacts the market. Because this is why I went through and took the time over the last year to refinance 80% of my portfolio, was so I could create the revenue or the dry powder and the cash reserve to then become a buyer, because I'll walk people through exactly how I see that happening and what I did with my entire portfolio in the last year to then try and make that happen.
We will do that video next, but before we do, how can people find you?
Lumberjack Landlord on YouTube and Lumberjack Landlord on Instagram, and our 3-hour live stream that we have on YouTube, 11:30 a.m. Eastern times on Sunday.
Awesome.